God here. And it's football season. And it's like 100 degrees outside. Sorry about that. Welcome to Season 3 of Gods of Odds, hosted by two of my favorites, Brad Hoyseth and Dave Daba.
Welcome to the Gods of Odds. It is week number 13 of your National Football League season. That is Brad Hoyseth over there in beautiful Southern California. I'm Dave Daba up in Northern California, where, Brad, it was raining. Raining this morning. In fact, we even had some hail hit the roof at one point this morning, which I'm sure all of the family members in the house slept through except me. So I was up a little bit earlier in the day than normal, Mr. Hoyseth. And I have to say, I've been looking forward all day to you and I call it the best hour of the week when you and I get to talk National Football League for about an hour or so.
Yeah, it's been a while. I mean, you know, we had the 1 week where I forget what happened. You were sick or something, and then we had a week on, and then we had Thanksgiving week, and now we're back on. So I feel a little out of sorts myself. I'm headed up your way in the next 24 hours. I heard there's more rain coming, so we'll experience some of that when we're up there. I don't know how much of it's going to make it down here, but they're saying it might rain a little bit here and there. But World Cup fever, Dave. You got World Cup fever?
I'm trying, Brad. I have some complaints, but I'll take those offline. Definitely.
You hear that right there, Dave? I have dog fever. Okay,
you have dog fever, which is to be expected. Right. You got puppies in the house. So yeah, I don't think we're actually looking at anything too earth-shattering here come Saturday. If I were, I mean, I coached some soccer when my kids were younger. I played a little bit when I was a kid. I know the sport actually pretty well. I still contest that the sport would be vastly improved if they got rid of the offsides rule. But that's, an American talking about a sport that was invented in a completely different country. So the U.S. team going up against the Netherlands seems like a bit of a stretch based on what I've seen so far. But I will wake up early and watch it, because on the West Coast, that's what it's going to take. I think it's a 7 a.m. Kickoff, if you will, on Saturday for that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've periodically, I'm like you. I coached soccer as a kid, my kids anyways. And that was one of the worst experiences of my life for a couple of years. But yeah. Anyways, it was what it was. So I get the game. I understand it. I will say, in fairness to this year's team, Dave, not that we're going to get off track and talk about the other football for any extended time, but this team has the best athletes I've ever seen on an American team. I watched them play England the other day, and I was like, we had the better athletes, for a country like England, that's their sport, or Ireland or something. I really thought, with some of these guys we had out there, we had the better athletes, and I think that proved to be the difference in that game. I thought we were the better team than England, really.
I mean, I definitely would feel better heading into this game against the Netherlands, honestly, if we've scored more than 2 goals in 3 games. And, but which is the nature of the of the sport. But and anyways, Brad, let's so much to talk about in the National Football League. I am just super excited to have an extensive Mike White conversation with you when we talk Vikings Jets, which will come up a little bit later in the show. Mr. Hoyseth, I'll pass it over to you, and we'll kick off one of the top 10 games worth actually spending some money on this weekend.
Yeah, my first game is the Steelers at the Falcons, and I'm playing the over-under here. And the over-under is at 42, I believe. Yeah, 42. And I'm going to take the over in this one, Dave, just because I think neither defense can play any defense at all. You know, the Steelers just give up a lot of big plays, probably one of the worst secondaries in the league. Not that the Falcons have a tremendous amount of weapons, but I think Marcus Mariota, with his ability to run, has the ability to make big plays, and keep a defense honest. So I'm going to take the over. I thought that was fairly low, 42. It's an indoor game in Atlanta. You don't have to worry about the weather. So I think the Steelers are a terrible defensive team. I don't think they're a very good team at all. And I don't think much of the Falcons, but I do believe both these teams going against the opposing defenses will probably score a little more than what they ordinarily do.
Yeah, I've flip-flopped on this a couple times since I saw you put it in the in our sheet. There's a lot of things Marcus Mariota does do, and turning the ball over is one of them, and making bad decisions is another. I really want to go with the over in this, but something just tells me that, if TJ Watt is there and he's healthy and he's playing, that they're going to shut down the Falcons. And, Kenny Prickett, right? That's the kid's name. Pickett. Pickett. He just can't throw a touchdown pass. He can throw everything else. He just can't seem to throw touchdown passes. Pickens is a really nice young wide receiver that the Steelers have. And I've been waiting for, like Najee Harris to have some sort of breakout, half season. He had a decent game last week. So I'm really on the fence here, Brad, but since I'm behind you significantly in our overall standings, I believe I've got to make up some ground, and this was one that I felt like was a good place for me to do it.
Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons I took the over is because I kind of feel I've watched a little bit of Pittsburgh games recently, especially since Pickett came in and started playing quarterback. But I've seen this kind of relationship between him and George Pickens, the wide receiver, start to develop a little bit. It seems like they've got some chemistry, and they're starting to make some big plays. And that was one of the reasons I kind of felt like the over was very doable here, just because, I'm a little concerned about Atlanta losing their tight end, but the reality is that they really didn't have him that well involved in the offense anyways, which is going to force them to throw the ball down the field a little bit more. And nobody gives up big plays like the Steelers, so they've given up a ton of them this year.
All right. All very valid points, Mr. Hoysef. I'm going to go ahead and move on to my first game. I've got the Colts heading to Dallas to do battle with the Dallas Cowboys. The boys, as you might call them, are favored by 9.5 points in this game. I'm hoping that you find some Jeff Saturday love and flip-flop on what I believe your decision is going to be on this game. 9.5 points is a lot of points, especially when you're talking about a Dallas Cowboy football team. But I do believe in Dak Prescott. I do believe in the defense. I don't think Matt Ryan's going to have any time to do anything. Jonathan Taylor will literally have to run for 200 yards for them to, beat the spread. The one thing that I'm sort of concerned about is that teams don't necessarily beat the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys beat the Dallas Cowboys. So it seems as if a lot this season they've ended up beating themselves. And a lot of that has to do with their offensive coordinator who makes bad decisions. So that being said, I'm going with the Cowboys. I think they're going to find a way to slow the run down enough, and Matt Ryan's not going to have any time to get anything done in this game. Cowboys should cover that really high 9.5 points.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think you laid out all the key point there is that, Matt Ryan is basically a statue at this point. That's one of the fortes of the Cowboys is that they get after the quarterback. they force balls to go up, and then they pick them off. And I think I can't envision Indianapolis making any less than 2 or 3 turnovers in this game.
Yeah,
I thought the 9.5 was a little bit high, but I'm with you. I'm going to take the Cowboys. I just think they're a far superior team to the Colts. Colts kind of came back down to earth a little bit last week, even though they made a close game at the end, but they came back to earth a little bit with Jeff Saturday as the coach. They're just not a very talented team. If they give it to Jonathan Taylor, they have more success than if they don't give it to Jonathan Taylor. There's just not a lot else there. The offensive line is terrible, and Ryan can't run. I'm with you. I'm taking the Cowboys.
Yeah, I mean, I think if Jeff Saturday was sitting in his ESPN get up in the morning show seat on Tuesday, he would have complained that head coach should have taken some timeouts towards the end of the game. And Saturday, didn't tried to brush it off in the post-game press conference, and then the next day said the right thing, which is they should have used some timeouts to slow things down. They were playing it as if that they were definitely going to score, and which just seemed crazy if you consider the how hard it has been for this Colts team to score. So, anyways, I'm with you as well, Brad, on the Cowboys in this one.
All right, next one I got up is the Commanders at the Giants, and of all things, Washington is favored by 2.5 in this, Dave, and I didn't quite understand it, and it was 1, and the line keeps increasing, and I keep trying to find a reason why, and I can't seem to find one. The Giants to me are a better football team than Washington. Taylor Heineke has some moments. Unfortunately, he throws a lot of balls to the other team, tries to make too many things happen. He's like the cheap rip-off version of Brett Favre, kind of looks like him, tries to run around like him, tries to throw it like him, but he doesn't win a lot of games. And so I have not figured out yet why this line is what it is. The Giants are at home. They don't have any real significant injuries that I'm aware of. And I'm going to take the home team and take the 2.5 points. I just don't think Washington's a very good team.
I mean, I looked at this and I was like, I couldn't believe the Giants weren't favored by 2.5 points in this game. And so while I think Washington's gonna could easily actually win this game because the team's on a roll, and I would never compare. I wouldn't do that to poor Brett Favre. Compare Taylor Heineke to Brett Favre. Taylor Heineke is like a poor man's Tommy Kramer. That doesn't quite have the arm that Tommy Kramer had. But that could just be a childhood memory, more than anything. I just I've also wanted to flip-flop on this one too, Brad, just because I think Washington's going to win it. I just don't like giving up the 2.5 points. And Dayball, he's got to get this ship back on track. And this is a good opportunity for them to figure some things out. I have noticed, though, as the season has sort of dragged on, scoring seems to be harder and harder in the NFL. And it seems as if there's been a lot more tightly low scoring games. And I could see this being like a 20-17 game at the end. So I'm just going to go ahead and agree with you, and I'm going to stick with the Giants. But something tells me the Commanders are going to win by like a point in this game.
Yeah, you brought back a lot of memories for me right there. That reminded me a little bit of a Howard Cosell line. Tommy Kramer, the brilliant youngster out of Rice. You remember that stuff? The Kramer would wear it was like a big water bottle on the back of his neck, and he was rumored to be a drinker, and everybody thought maybe he had vodka in there or something.
Yeah.
But the great Howard Cosell, man, how do we miss that guy so much, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I used to do a great Howard Cosell. I'm going to reserve it though for another day.
I tried. You know.
Yeah.
I can do a Harry Carey though. Hi, holy cow, Dama.
Yeah, cow. All right, Brad. On to my next game. I've got the Saints at the Bucs. Mr. Harry Carey. Bucs are favored by 4. Like I mentioned this a little earlier in the week with on a different podcast, and I said that the Bucs were just such a disappointment this year. I mean, they just really are. They had no business losing to Cleveland. But at the same time, I wasn't surprised that they lost to Cleveland. So when I sort of look at this is once again a must win for them. They basically win the division if they win this game. So I think they're going to win the game. I think with the Saints getting shut out last week, I think they're wounded. The Bucs should win this game. They should win it by 4. So I'm going with the Bucs. But I'm really just not confident in anything related to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at this point.
Dave, I just flopped. I was going to go with you, but 4,
yeah, it's a lot.
I keep watching this Bucs team, and they got a quarterback that's finished, Dave. He's just done. He can't throw the ball deep anymore. He just can't do it. And they don't have an offensive line that can protect them. They just lost their left tackle now. And if there's one thing the Saints can do, it's rush the passer. As they've always had a pretty good defensive line. And so it feels like a field goal game to me. I don't like either team. I think they're both terrible football teams. My dogs feel the same way, Dave. Holy cow!
The bark of terror.
I mean, I'm going to take the Saints. I'm going to take those 4 points. I just feel like both these teams are inadequate. I can't believe anybody's favored by more than 1 or 2 points over the other.
Yeah. 4 points is definitely scary, for sure. And the Saints will definitely score, and I agree. It's probably, a significant amount of field goals in this game. My issue with Tom Brady isn't the deep ball, because I think he can still throw that good enough. It's the 10 to 15 yard pass that he keeps throwing in the dirt before it gets to wide receivers. It's those passes where I'm like, Father Time is caught up. That's when he knows he's making the right throw, and he's stepping into it, and they're just not getting there the way they would have gotten there a couple years ago. So, Dave,
and when he does throw it on the money, how many times are we going to have to sit and watch Mike Evans drop a ball this year?
It's almost like Mike Evans is surprised. I mean, that could be happening.
Let's go into my next one. Your favorite team right now, the Lions. I think I got a positive Lions text message from you last week.
Yeah,
you're starting to believe in them or something. I forget what it was. Anyways, the Lions are at home. They're facing the Jaguars. I don't know. The Lions. I told a buddy of mine this week, and he agreed with me. They're one of the most enjoyable teams to watch this year. I know they don't win a lot of games. They don't play any defense, and their offense is really good. And so they're a lot of fun to watch, even though it's they don't win a lot. But they're a 1-point favorite at home. And I just get a feeling that this is their week. The Jaguars are not very good. Their quarterback makes a lot of mistakes, especially when it matters. But two teams that can score a lot of points. The over/under is pretty high. It should be another exciting game for the Lions. I'm going to take the Detroit guys at home.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, just totally entertaining watching the Detroit Lions play football. I'm just.
When was the last time you said that?
Yeah, I mean, like
Wayne Fonts was the coach.
Right. Just, poor Barry Sanders, he'd run all over the field, and, he'd keep carrying that team to an 8-8 record year after year.
It's Scott Mitchell and Brett Perryman and
I can't remember any of that. I remember telling my Lions fans when they let Fonts go, I was like, it's a bad decision. You should be just happy you're sitting at 8-8 every year. Yeah. And they've had like some decent runs with a couple other coaches since then, but not a lot. And this team, which obviously is in a complete rebuild mode, they'll have to bring in a different defensive coordinator next year if Dan Campbell survives, which I think he will at this point. But I don't think their D coordinator is going to survive. I don't think the D coordinator in Minnesota should survive either. Not a big fan of that 3-4 wide open middle defense that that he's currently running. Look, I think the real question here is, Trevor Lawrence statistically is getting close to being like a top 10 quarterback in the National Football League. The QBR ratings and the touchdown passes versus interceptions, at least in the last, handful of games, have all been positive. So I'm still not entirely sold on Jacksonville. This is a game Jacksonville should win, but I don't think they're going to win it. I think Detroit's going to be gritty and gutty, and even if Jacksonville gets up by 20 points, no lead is safe with a Dan Campbell coach football team.
Unfortunately for the Lions, it usually goes the other way. They get out in front by 20, and then at the end, it's a tight ball game. It's really a tempo game because the Lions cannot stop the run at all. So the Jaguars should be able to run the ball all over them and make it a high-scoring affair. But, that offensive line in Detroit is great. It's probably the best offensive line in football, if not one of the best offensive lines in football. And it's kept Jared Goff upright. And, I was very critical of Jared Goff when he was with the Rams because they didn't have a good offensive line. And he couldn't run and he couldn't scramble. But, he's again proven what they thought on draft day is that if you can keep him upright, he actually throws a pretty nice ball. So the Lions, they're fun to watch. Should be a close one. If I get a chance to watch that one, I'm gonna check it out.
Yeah, I'm absolutely with you on that. I'm gonna check it out as well if I can. Okay, so moving on. Next up, I have the Chiefs at the Bengals. Chiefs are favored by a whopping 2.5 points in this one. This was a little more challenging when you think about, how good Joe Burrow's been playing. Talk about a quarterback whose team's never really out of it. Pass rush. If you can't get any kind of pass rush on Joe Burrow, he'll eventually pick you apart. I'm not sure what the status is on Joe Nixon at this point, but they have a nice journeyman backup running back in place, which proves your running back point. And T. Higgins has definitely stepped up in the Jamar Chase absence. So I sort of looked at this, and as much as I want to go with Cincinnati, since the Kansas City Chiefs have lost to the Buffalo Bills, all they've done is win games, and win them fairly impressively. If it comes down to coaching, I'm going to go with Andy Reid in this. I know nothing about the weather forecast, so I'd wait until you got a little closer to it, but before throwing any money down on it. But that being said, I'm going with Kansas City.
Yeah, it should be one of the more entertaining games to watch. I probably wouldn't have bet on this one if it was just me, because I kind of feel like this thing could go either way. I went with you. I went with the Chiefs. Jamar Chase is back. And recent weeks when we've done the show, I've talked about the guy that moves the sticks, and he's that guy. And so they've had a lot of off and on injuries this year, have the Bengals. Be nice to see that team get healthy for once and see what they can do. It is down the stretch, and we saw how they made a run last year down the stretch when they won all those games and ended up in the Super Bowl. It should be a heck of a good football game to watch, but I'm with you. I'm going to take the Chiefs 2.5. I think it's a field goal game. It appears like Harrison Butker is now finally healthy for the Chiefs. And so I think he made 4 or 5 field goals last week. So I'm with you. I'm going to take the Chiefs on the road in Cincinnati. I just think that it's time that Cincinnati's still been a little bit too inconsistent for me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely too inconsistent. Hey, now if Cincinnati wins this game though, in like some sort of impressive fashion, you'd have to start to really consider the Bengals as a real team that has a shot at going back to a Super Bowl this year. I mean, we can't forget what they did to the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game last year. All things being equal, this should be a really good game to watch. And just on a personal note, I hope that the Bengals go with their all white helmets and their all white uniforms. Those are just badass.
My preseason prediction, Dave, was the Niners and the Bengals in the Super Bowl. So part of me wants to see the Bengals win. I think they got to get hot here pretty soon if they're gonna get any type of home field type advantage in the playoffs. So it's a big game when you think about that. I mean, when you bring all that stuff into play, it's a huge game for both these teams. My next game is two teams that are just, well, they're not very interesting. The Rams are maybe the worst team in the NFC right now. They're terrible. And they're at home versus the Seahawks. The Seahawks have played better football this year. I think Pete Carroll's done a really nice job with them. Geno Smith's had a nice year. In recent weeks, he's kind of starting to come back to the mean a little bit, but the over-under in that game is 40.5. The Rams, Dave, are just terrible. I mean, they don't have anything offensively. No Cooper Kupp. They're on quarterback number 3. I don't think Stafford's going to play. They got no running game. Their offensive line is not very good. And they're just a lifeless team. There's no buzz at all in Southern California, it's the strangest feeling because I don't remember the last time we had a Super Bowl defending champion who really by midseason was out of the playoffs. I mean, they're just not very good. So I'm going to take the under in this. I feel like it's more of a defensive struggle. The Seahawks, I don't think, are great offensively. The Rams still, if there is a strength to the Rams, it's still their defense. They just don't score very much. And so I think they got to hope to keep it close if you're the Rams and maybe get a last-second touchdown and win the thing. But I see the Seahawks winning the game, and I see the game going under.
Yeah, this was Vegas did an excellent job on this line, I think. It's just like if they wanted you to take the over, they would have dropped it, below 40, I think. So I sort of my question was, okay, I think Seattle's going to score a couple touchdowns. I think the Rams are going to kick a couple field goals, and then I think Geno Smith's going to throw a pick 6 or 2. And Jalen Ramsey's going to score, and the defense is going to score a touchdown, and there'll be some random points somewhere. So I'm going with the over in this. I mean, I've got like the Seahawks winning the game, like 24-17, something like that. I think sometimes when teams get really bad, it just opens up the other team that they're playing against so much so that they can put up some bigger numbers than you would anticipate. So I'm not going to flip flop, Hoysef. I'm sticking with my original plan, and I'm going to take the over in this one.
Dave, the Rams have scored 178 points in 11 games. They've lost 5 in a row. It's a bad football team. They've given up. They've already, in my opinion, they've already waved the white flag. I'm hearing Aaron Donald might be out now. I don't know. I've heard some things of that nature. So it's a bad football. The Seahawks, I'm neither here nor there with them. They're 6-5. They've scored 10 more points than they've given up. I mean, that's just kind of the team they are. They kind of play to the other team's ability. And if you're going to play to the other team's ability in the Rams, that means you're not going to score many points. So I'm predicting a low-scoring game there.
Yeah. All right. Moving on. I've got the Chargers at the Las Vegas Raiders. Chargers, coached by one of your favorite head coaches, are favored by 2.5 on the road. The Raiders are another one of those teams that have been semi-entertaining to watch this year. Josh Jacobs with his 83-yard touchdown run or gallop in overtime last week to take the Raiders to victory. I think things are just so hard for the Raiders. That's sort of what it comes down to. It's just so hard for them to win. It takes overtime, and it takes a 83-yard touchdown, and then the leadership of Derek Carr, who's probably in tears, on the field after that, drops it's just something not right with the chemistry between the coaching staff and the players on this team. And there's all these rumors that they're going to get rid of Darren Waller next year. And it's like, why would you do that when you have one of the top tight ends and you just paid him all this money? And then why wouldn't you pay Josh Jacobs? And, it's just ongoing mixed signals. As Herbert's sort of gotten his pieces back with Keenan Allen recently, I feel a little bit more confident. I think they would have won a couple more games if Keenan Allen hadn't been injured for most of the season. So I think this is a Charger team that's better than its record, but it normally is, Brad. But I got the Chargers, and I'm rolling the dice. I'm going with the Chargers in this one.
Yeah, it's entertaining in that, we both live out west, and it's a AFC West game.
Yeah.
It's two teams that have kind of notoriously underachieved.
Yeah.
And so you just wonder which team's going to show up this week, one of those things. I just kind of feel like the Raiders got a big boost by winning that game this last week. Neither team plays any defense at all. I mean, the over is like 15.5. If I was really going to bet this game, I'd probably bet the over in this game. But I'm going to take the Raiders. I think it's a field goal game. They got one of the great field goals in the kickers in the league. So I'm going to take the Raiders, and I'm going to take that 2.5 points from you.
So you've got the Raiders going to 5-7 with that victory, and the Chargers falling to 6-6.
Dave, I have no faith in Brendan Staley winning 2 games in a row. I don't. I mean, just they're kind of like, they're just one of those teams that they tease you, and I just don't see. I just don't think they're like, defensively they're terrible, and I just kind of feel like the Raiders do have some weapons offensively. They're playing at home. The Chargers have given up, 282 points in 11 games. They're giving up points in buckets. Not that the Raiders are all that much better, but they've both quickly fallen, at least 3 or 4 games behind the Chiefs. That thing got away from them in a hurry, and so I just think the Chargers. I think both these teams are 500 teams, and I'm going to take the Raiders to get a little closer to 500. And I'm going to pick the Chargers to drop back to 500.
There you go. Chargers are 4-2 away from SoFi. So that's a interesting, and we all know that most of their home games are away games anyways. So,
all right, I guess we're on to my final game. I think it's one of the games of the week. I love this. I should have let you pick this thing first, because you're more the Niners guru than anything. I usually get the Vikings games right, and you get the Niners games right. It's kind of our thing. But I ended up picking this game first, and it's the Dolphins at the Niners, and the Niners are 3.5 point favorites. And to me, these are two of the premier teams right now in the league. I know the records of the Niners doesn't exactly say that, but they've been starting to figure it out. And now with McCaffrey, I think most people feel like this is one of the better teams in the NFC if they can get things rolling here at the end of the year. I think they very well may win this game, the Niners. But I really like that extra half point, that extra hook at 3.5. So I think the Fins are one of the more entertaining teams to watch. Tua doesn't make big mistakes. So I think he'll be able to generate a couple of long drives against the Niners and keep that thing close. So 3.5, I like the Fins on the road in San Francisco.
Yeah, I looked at this game, and for those of you that have followed the show, you've all heard me complain about Kyle Shanahan before, and like I don't know, and I'll say this one last time, I don't understand the Jeff Wilson Jr. trade at all. And on top of it, you're trading him to a team you're going to play later in the season, and that happens to be this week in the Miami Dolphins. I don't, this 49er defense hasn't allowed a single point in the second half of a game in like 4 or 5 weeks. It's just been, that's not going to happen in this game. The Dolphins will definitely score some points in the second half. But I looked at this and I said, Kyle Shanahan's going to, do a lot of ball control stuff. Tua is not going to have the ball as much as he would like to. The running game is so strong. So many weapons across the board on both sides of the fences here. I just think the rookie head coach against his former boss is another intriguing. I mean, like, these guys know each other really well. They're all going to be running very similar plays on offense. So for me, it sort of came down to, which defense is better. And as improved as the Dolphins are on the defensive side of the ball, the 49er defense is a daunting defense. And I think they'll get their pick six and they'll get to Tua, and, I'm not wishing for injuries or anything like that, but we might see a backup quarterback. I could see all of that happening with this 49er defense. So if you're going to call me the 49er whisperer, my whisper to you, Hoisef, is you're wrong, and you should take the 49ers and give up.
Boy, you're just going Oliver Stone on us here, aren't you? I mean, you're just predicting injuries, the whole thing. How about Jeff Wilson Jr.? Huh? Going to come home
any given Sunday too is going to be
come home, and is he going to come home and hunt your 49ers or what?
I think he's got a good chance of making things interesting. Like, I think there's going to be a lot of points scored in this game.
Yeah, it's a wonderful matchup, really. My concern with the Niners, Deebo Samuel injury, I don't know. It seemed like he was hurt to me, and so we'll find out. He's a tough guy. He plays hurt. He's, I think, one of the more intriguing players to watch in the league. He's a lot of fun, along with McCaffrey, who's a blast to watch. So there's a lot of great players there. And on the other side, you got Tyreek Hill, who's just a freakish athlete. And Tua seems to have kind of come into his own this year. I know you don't quite believe it yet, but that's fun. Great uniforms, great colors. It's the game of the week.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. All right, moving on to our last game of the week. It is the New York Football Jets, led by one Mike White at starting quarterback against our Minnesota Vikings. Vikings are favored by 3 in this one. I've tried to be not a homer this year. I've tried to be as objective as possible. I've tried to not use heart in making predictions, and when it comes to this Viking team, I'm a little concerned about this Jets defense, and I'm definitely concerned about the Viking defense. You should never allow a New England quarterback not named Tom Brady to pass for over 300 yards against you. It's too easy, Brad. The defense, the Vikings defense is it's too easy to pick apart. And I know it's probably too late in the season to make any real meaningful adjustments. But Philadelphia did last year on the offensive side of the ball. Why can't the Vikings realize that this 3-4 isn't working and shift back to a 4-3 defense? Do they not have enough talent to make that change? So that's my concern. I've got the Vikes winning this game, by a touchdown. But I am concerned about their defense in the long run.
Yeah, I'm taking the Jets, Dave. The Vikings.
Why would you do that, Hoysef? Are you on the Mike White? Is there a Mike White jersey in your future?
There might be after he gets a look at that defensive secondary. I can tell you that. A lot of people might be buying them. The Vikings, Dave, they've outscored their opponents by 5 points the whole year. They're 9-2. Now, I understand the Dallas game threw things out of whack, and that's a lot of the reason for that stat. But at the end of the day, they're giving up way too many points. Are the Jets great? No, but Mike White, they got some pretty good weapons. Rookie wide receiver. They also got Corey Davis, who's healthy and back now. They lost their stud running back, the rookie, a couple weeks back, and but they got their dime a dozen, those running backs, Dave. And so, the Vikings. You mentioned another thing too. The Jets defense is good, and they make things difficult for you. So, I think it's an intriguing game. I think the line's pretty close to what it should be. The Vikes favored by 3. I just get a sense that it's time for the Vikings, now that their fans think they're great, to take a step backwards. I don't think it's a great football team. If this team leaked oil down the stretch and won 11 games, it wouldn't stun me at all.
Yeah.
At the end of the year. So 9-2, at some point they're coming back to the mean, because it's not that great of a football team.
Yeah. And this is definitely a game in which that could happen. Sauce Gardner in their secondary is phenomenal. I'm less concerned about the Vikings secondary. Even some of the kids that they put in, I'm more concerned about their linebacker core and the lack of pressure they're getting on quarterbacks, and the wide open hole in the middle of the field, which I guess maybe you could blame on the secondary, but it's the strategy of the defense that seems to be the big issue here. I could almost talk myself into flip-flopping and agreeing with you. But something just tells me Dalvin Cook is going to, for at least a play or two, run rampant, because that's what he does. It's every other game he has a big run. So he didn't have one last week. He should have one this week. So that's what I'm going with. Plus, they've had a little bit more time to sort of they sort of had like a mini bye. So they've been able to get a little bit more healthy since Thanksgiving. So I'm sticking with Brad. I'm not going to do it. You haven't convinced me enough. As good as this Jets defense is, and as aggressive as they are, similar to the 49er defense, I think we're going to have a strategy in play to counter enough of that to figure out how to get a win. Plus, I just don't think Mike White's all that good.
Well, I agree with you on the Mike White thing, but the intriguing matchup is Jefferson versus Sauce Gardner. And if Gardner shuts him down at all, it's really going to force Cousins to do something different. He doesn't think outside the box very often, Kirk Cousins. This is his favorite move right here. Puts his hands on it because he can't call his own plays in a 2-minute drill. He hasn't figured it out in the 10 years he's been in the league. And so he's always waiting for the call to come in. So what are they going to call? Are they going to veer away from Jefferson a little bit this week and give the ball to Cook, maybe get the ball to Thielen and Hawkinson? It's time for Hawkinson to score a touchdown, right? or are they going to try to, in a high-profile game like this one against the Jets, are they going to try to force the ball into the hand of Justin Jefferson? I think if they do, they're going to throw an interception or two.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be a really intriguing matchup. I mean, the one thing about Jefferson is, like, if you want to get him the ball, you can. But like, if you're going to get him the ball, it needs to be downfield. And that's where he opens everything up for everybody else. And so when they do like these, screen passes to Jefferson or, reverses to Jeffrey, like that stuff just doesn't work. And it doesn't accomplish what you're trying to accomplish in your chess match against the other coach, which is, opening up the field for other players. So I think they will take some shots downfield, but they might not do it until the second half of the game. So,
the Jets they got another really nice young wide receiver, Garrett Wilson, who's
I really like him. Yeah.
He's putting together a really nice second half of the season here. And with Corey Davis back, Michael Carter's a serviceable running back.
I like Michael Carter. I picked him up on my fantasy football team.
How much? Remember, we talked earlier about how Wilson Jr. could come back and haunt the 49ers. How about Tyler Conklin? What if he comes back and haunts the Vikings and gets a touchdown? The long locks are flowing with the Jets uniform on. That would be humbling, right?
But I will send you a Mike White shirt if that happens.
But we weren't on last week. We didn't talk much about it. What did you think of the Zach Wilson benching with the Jets? I didn't really understand it.
Oh, I totally understood it. It was pure go look at his stats. He's basically the worst rated quarterback in the National Football League. So forget about the press conference fiasco. But just look at the stats. He needed to be benched. I haven't been on the Zach Wilson ride at all since he was drafted. So, he's like one of those guys like in college that made, those couple great passes, those Ryan Leaf passes. Yeah. Like Ryan Leaf had at Washington State, some just incredible passes in college, came to the NFL and was just a disaster. And the Ryan Leaf saga is a different saga for different reasons than Zach Wilson, but Zach just doesn't seem to understand that he's not that good. And I think they had enough of it. And they said, you have a lot of stuff to work on. And until you work on it, we're not putting you back in a uniform. I mean, like they didn't even dress him. Like he's fully benched right now.
Yeah, no, I mean, but the thing I don't really quite get about it is a couple things. Number one, it was their choice to start Zach Wilson as a rookie, right? They never put him on the sidelines and let him watch and let him grow up. So in essence, they kind of have to eat that a little bit on their own. Mike White is just a guy. I mean, have they given up on Wilson? Have they say basically you're done here? Because that's the way it seems to me. If they had somebody else there that had a huge pedigree, it'd be one thing. But you're talking about Mike White, Dave.
Yeah,
where did he play college football, by the way?
Like a Eastern Kentucky or something.
I don't know. It was a directional school, is what you're saying?
It was most definitely a directional school. It was a multi-directional school.
Right, Northeast.
That's what it was. Yeah, I'm not like I'm
Mike White. Mike White, the brilliant young player. Holy cow!
It's so fantastic. Harry Carey announcing a Mike White pick six. That's what I want to hear this weekend. I think I like Mike White as a backup quarterback. I like him as a guy like you could bring in for a handful of games if your Dak Prescott went out and you wanted to bring him in. So I don't know if he's the guy that's going to lead you to the promised land. like a Brad Johnson once did with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which is just hard to believe. Trent Dilfer, the new head coach at UAB, which got announced yesterday. He went from high school to UAB. Jeff Saturday, that's how it's supposed to be done. So I look at this and I'm okay with them going with him, and I'm okay with them benching Zach Wilson, and Zach Wilson had all off season, had all this time to get it right, and hasn't improved. He's had like one decent game. I think we've seen enough. If you're a New York Jets fan,
I think the fans have seen enough of this show, by the way.
Yeah, they've probably seen enough of this show. Enough. They're done with the Harry Carey.
Two to Mike White. I got to go back. Now I can do my Vince Scully, right?
Oh yeah, that's awesome. You can get them talking to each other. That would be that'd be absolutely phenomenal. All right, well, there you go. We've definitely strayed as usual. Brad, any last second comments?
No, really. I mean, I'm headed on the road here in a few hours. In the middle, I'm leaving about 4:30 in the morning to come up your direction. So
nice.
I'll be in town with both of our kids, actually. UC Davis there for a little bit. Got my Aggies sweatshirt on today, Dave.
Nice.
So headed up there and watching some soccer. I work at a school that their women's team made the Final Four, so going up there, and hopefully the weather's not too terrible. I know it's not supposed to be very warm, but it's supposed to rain a lot, though, so it's not ideal stuff.
Yeah. All right. Well, Mr. Hoysef, safe travels to Northern California. We want to thank everybody so much for tuning in to the Gods of Odds. This is week number 13 of your National Football League season. That is Brad Hoysef over there in beautiful Southern California. I'm Dave DeBaugh up in Northern California, wishing you all a tremendous rest of your sports viewing week.
Cubs win! Cubs win! Cubs win! Holy cow!